Chapter 12 is sampling stuff. So chapter 12 is like saying convenient sampling, voluntary response sampling, clustering, stratifying, also bias, under coverage, voluntary response bias with the wording, privacy, adherence, all. Anyway, so that's chapter 12. Chapter 13, of course, is all these ways of designing an experiment. And so those will both be tested next Tuesday. Okay, Quiz Friday. All right, so yesterday you watched the video in my absence, and then I kind of gave you a little guide on this number 4. So will you turn to that number 4 in your notes? I have to confess that when I pulled out my answer key for this, last year I did not even do this as a matched pair. I didn't recognize last year that the matched pair, what I did was I kind of grouped them like 18 to 29 and 30 to 40 or whatever I did. I grouped them by kind of age, decade. But honestly, I looked at the examples of which somebody else had made, and I thought, you know what, there probably should be a matched pair example in here, don't you think? And so I thought, okay, I think this one's the best one. And probably since it is saying test these 2 different methods, although you can do that with a new and a current or whatever. But age was a confounding issue, and the age discrepancy was a lot. I thought I should probably go ahead and pair these people up. Plus the fact that I didn't see any other one that was probably going to be a pair. So that's when I told you yesterday in the video that I would do 60 matched pairs by age. And you have to tell the grader. I will pair and match them up by age. And why are you doing that? Because you think that there's a difference in memory capacity due to age. You have to explain why you are blocking or why you are pairing. And it needs to be related to the response. You think age has an effect on memory capacity, which is what you're testing about. If it is your color choice, and that has nothing to do with your memory capacity, like your favorite color, then you don't need to block by your favorite color. Okay? Only block by something that's going to matter to what you are measuring. All right. And then, guess what? I don't need to draw this experiment 60 times. I can do this little path, or this little ticket, within each block, and then explain what I'm doing once. Or I say within each pair. So, what would you do within each pair on this one? You would, how are you going to, so one of them gets method A, and one of them gets method B, but I heard you say the first thing correctly. What did I skip? Okay, randomly assign. And so when you randomly assign, you need to make sure that, every left person isn't getting the first method and every right-handed person is getting whatever. Or every, like with the plots of land, you don't want the west one to always be getting the same treatment and the east one getting the same treatment. They need to be assigned randomly. So, what would you do? Yeah, how about put each, okay, you can flip a coin. Yeah, you can flip a coin in the first person. If the first person gets heads, they get method A. If the first person gets tails, they get method B. Or you could put the pair in a bag. In the bag, shake well, that's right, shake those pairs up. And then the first one gets method A. Alright. Then they do this thing, and then what are you going to do at the end? You're going to compare probably the, like the average memory capacity. Because I kind of took cue from this. Memorization capacity is probably what we're measuring. Whatever scale they do that on, I don't know. Okay, and so on. So you're doing that within each block. Now, I want to just kind kind of talk to you about number 5 and 6, and then I'm going to come around and stamp your FRAPPYs 5.1 and 5.2 and see that you did 5 and 6. Give you a stamp for that. While you fix 5 or 6 if need be. So let's kind of do a general, just kind of a little, see how you did general on these, and then go on. Okay, so this was a study of blood pressure. We have 3 different methods: drugs, yoga, or meditation in this company. I want to see which is the most effective method in reducing blood pressure. Conduct inappropriate design. Okay, did anybody think that there should be some kind of blocking? Is there something that you think will affect blood pressure that you need to control? Okay, so some people said no. Those people who said yes, let me hear your reasons. What do you think? Okay, I heard gender, and you know what? We are not medical experts, and the College Board knows you are not. So if you say something that's even partially reasonable and you explain why, then you're good. So, I mean, I don't personally think gender's a great way. I don't even think the way that I put last year was a great way, but I explained why, and it works. You can say this: I will block by gender because I think that gender affects blood pressure. Okay? I will block by gender because I think gender has an effect on blood pressure. That's your key to getting your blocking credits. Okay? I chose to block by position in the company because I thought position in the company affected your stress level, which affects your high blood pressure. So whatever. Anybody else block a different way? I got some today that were weights. Okay. All right. So now, did anybody decide they wanted a control group? I could argue either way. So let me hear your control group argument. Okay, what you think, Thomas? No, because you would take the blood pressure before, so you would be measuring the improvement of blood pressure. So that's your baseline. Okay? See that? I said yes because this is probably done over time, like maybe over a 6-month period, and maybe the whole company's average blood pressure is different in the summer than it is around Christmas time. So I need to kind of just know how much everybody's changes in general before I start putting in the up and down of the treatment. For one, y'all's blood pressure may go down during the holidays, but adults' blood pressure probably skyrockets. So that in itself means everybody's kind of bumps up a notch, and so I have to account for that by measuring it with a control group, somebody who had no treatment, and then do the taken off of the whatever. Okay. Population of interest. Who does this get generalized to? Probably you think it's the all adults? I think it's randomly selected from the company, so I think we would just probably do that particular company now. You then could later argue that they're representative of all adults. Okay. Parameter of interest. How about this parameter of interest? What is that? Remember, that's something about the population that you hope to come up with. What are you coming up with? Yes, it's not the way to reduce blood pressure. You're looking for, like, what's the measurement you are taking? The change in blood pressure. So you are measuring probably the average change in blood pressure. Okay, that's what you are measuring. And then as a result, you are determining which method is more effective. Okay, so I'm going to have you talk to your peeps around you and check how you did on that in a second, but let's first talk about number 6. I honestly think that you may not have the knowledge to know how you should block this thing. There is some what? Okay. there is probably a reason that you need to control something here and you may not know. So let me talk to you about that. And then I'll let you fix it while I go around and stamping you. So, you know, so this first paragraph really is kind of just like history saying there's an argument between should the tangible be the reason or should the money be the reason? Should it be a trip or the money? But they can see blah, blah, blah. So that's the reason for the first paragraph. Second paragraph says Goodyear Tires did this. They actually did this experiment. I'll show you the results shortly. But they have 60 retail districts across the country. So here's the background I think that you probably as a 17, 18-year-old don't understand. Retail districts are typically done by geographic area, meaning, you know, Texas might have 3 districts, maybe South Texas, Central Texas, and North Texas. California probably has several districts. Otherwise, they may be just like by state. So Arizona would be a sales district, Louisiana would be a sales district, Washington State would be a sales district. So if I am measuring the success of Aqua Tread tires, I might need to consider what as far as the districts goes. Location because of weather. Should I compare the sales of an Arizona district to the sales of a Washington State district? No. Okay? Because that's an apple and an orange. They have totally different climates and it's going to affect their Aqua Tread tire sales. So, with that being said, now that you understand that background, I want you to rethink your design for number 6 and fix it as I come around and stamp your frappies. So let's go ahead and go over these. Alright, so actually I am just going to show you my key that I have up here and then you can ask me. Now mine's not perfect. I don't really even like my method I have on the first one, so let's look here real quick. Okay. Okay, everybody, listen up. Here we go. Now, I wrote a lot more stuff. I'm the teacher. I kind of like write a lot more to explain stuff. But here we go. Look. This is number 5. This is not FRAPPY. This is number 5 about the blood pressure at the large company. So here we go. Because one of the questions was, what's the population of interest? I had this at the beginning. Population is all the adults at this large company. And so then I, from that, randomly selected adults. I think it should probably be adults with high blood pressure because I'm thinking I probably shouldn't give blood pressure medicine and pills to people who have regular or low blood pressure naturally because then that could like harm them. So I probably should limit this to the high blood pressure adults. Okay, but here's the thing. You need to, there's an issue of things that can affect blood pressure. Whether you think it's weight or gender or stress level or what. You need to have notated that you block, and to get blocking credit, you need an explanation of why you blocked. So here's what my explanation was. I stated why I blocked. That's the key. I will block by type of position in the company because I think that the blood pressure level can be confounded by the stress of the position. So in layman's terms, you can say, I think the stress of the position will affect the blood pressure. So if you did men and women, you would say, I will block by gender because I think gender will affect their blood pressure, their average blood pressure. Okay? So whatever reason you block, you have to say why, and it has to be affecting the blood pressure. Do not block by their favorite color. That has no effect on their blood pressure, probably. I mean, there may be some psychological studies on that or whatever, but Okay? That's not a commonly known normalcy thing. All right. Now, then within each block, I happen to draw it out 3 times, which was extreme. I mean, you don't have to. You can just say within each block and then just do one of these. I divided into drug and yoga and meditation, and I can tell by the way that I just squeezed in this little word control that I probably originally did not do control, and then when I read what advantage would a control group provide, I thought, oh, I guess I probably should have a control group, and I think you can argue either way. I put in a control group. I did go back and put in a control group, and here is why. And I think, did I talk to you about this earlier? Because if you take your blood pressure as a baseline in summer, and then it goes till December as the end, all the adults overall have raised up some. So then you're going to get a skewed sense of how much yoga or meditation reduced. Because they're taking everybody's ending in the holidays, it's naturally all higher for adults. So I did control in case like the change in time naturally rose their thing because of the stress of the year or whatever. Okay, and then you need to compare within each block. Is it fair to compare administration to clerical staff? Probably not. That's the reason that I blocked them in the first place. So I would most likely be doing a comparison within each block. A comparison within each block. Okay. Now I could go compare drugs from administration to middle worker to clerical, or yoga across those. And you can do that. You can do lots of different data with that. Okay. Good. Any other questions? All right. Next. Yes. Okay. So if I wanted to like save all my writing, I wouldn't draw this. Okay. I would have only had this top part here, and I would have said within each block. And then I would do this one very well, and I would draw it all out, and I would say that goes for each block. Then I don't have to draw it out 3 or 4 times. Okay? All right, now let's talk about the Goodyear tires. Okay. Now, again, mine looks like a lot, and let me tell you something here. All of this, I pretty much didn't need. This was all duplicate information, okay? Because I could say, within each block, you know, I'm going to do this. All right, so here's what I did. I randomly selected 30 employees, and I just made this number up, 30. Okay, hold on just a second. I randomly selected 30 employees from each retail district. I had forethought as to why I chose 30. The forethought as to why I chose 30 was because I wanted to do a tangible group, a money group, and a nothing group. I need a baseline of how much this quote-unquote new and improved Aquatred tire improves sales just on its own. And let me tell you something. If you're working in business and you don't have this baseline to compare against, you will be fired. Yeah, it's important. Listen to this. This is big bucks. This is to see how much improvement there is. And if you do not know what the baseline improvement is, then you do not know how much more the money reward increased sales and how much more the tangible reward increased sales. And let me tell you something. You will have to present a report to your bosses that says we increased them this much, and we made this much more money. And they want to see that the profit they made from more sales is more than the money they spent on the Hawaiian vacations. You did all these Hawaiian vacations and they didn't bring in enough sales to counteract that, then you have just lost your job. Okay? So I'm not saying fudge the numbers. I mean, I'm just saying you need to This is something that you have to think through. You can't just say, oh, here, spend millions of dollars on all these things. Okay, yes, Thomas.
When it says that in there,
True.
here has to keep regional districts across the country and the data on the previous sales volume for the district.
Yes, absolutely. Correct. The whole district. Okay, I got your answer. All right, good. First question is, do we really need a control since, those are excellent questions, do we really need a thing since it says data on the previous sales volume in each district is known? Okay, that's arguable, and you could definitely not include a control. I would probably say, since data on the previous sales volume is known, I do not need a control group, because then you can compare it against that. I wonder if this new type of tire is going to be more than previous sales, just flat out new. Anyway, okay. So you could argue that. That's fine. The second question is, why do you select some employees? Why do you randomly select some employees from each district instead of just getting all their sales data? Is that correct? Is that the other question? Okay, the answer to that is the census argument. When you have a census, when I'm talking like all of South Texas, that's a huge amount of people and yada yada keep track of. So I think for accuracy and human error and just the bulk of having to keep track of that across the country, I'm going to reduce my sample so I don't have to do all of them. Because if you're doing all from all 60 districts, then you're going to be doing everything. But you're saying to take just some districts? For what? Then that's a census. Well, so then that's an argument of like getting the data. I think, again, the bottom line though is when you try to get a census and you're getting all of them, that's an astronomical amount of things to keep track of, and you run the risk of the accuracy issue. And the argument is a sample can be a better representation than what you're going to get from all. Okay, so I mean that's arguable, and so we'll talk about that later. But anyway, so hopefully that answers those two questions. Let's move on from that. Now, the next thing I want to do is go over your homework with you so that you're good to go on that. And so you've picked up your Chapter 13 homework Part 2. Additionally, I want, after we finish quickly talking about this, we're going to go over your FRAPPYs, 5.1 and 5.2, and you are going to transform yourself into AP graders in order to analyze your FRAPPY and how well you did. But let's first look at your homework. Homework Part 2. This question should look familiar. Is it an observational study or an experiment? And then yada 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 do those questions. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Okay, but guess what? On the previous homework, I said for you to leave out question F. But now, because at that time you did not know the difference between completely randomized, which is just one big bag, and you are expecting from one big bag, you are relying on one big bag to distribute the people evenly into the groups. Okay? Versus blocking, needing to control something, versus matched pair. Now you know that, so now you can answer F's. Furthermore, on this nature and scope of the conclusion, do you remember the two things I want on those? One is, can you infer cause and effect? And what can you generalize to? If you do not know if it's random selection, then you don't know. If they tell you it's volunteering, then you know what that limits you to. Alright, so just make a conscious notation of that. Next. Okay, here's this thing with shoes. So they give you a design and they say suggest some improvement. So obviously there's something issue that you should figure out can be done better. So just write those in. Notice on Part B, they are asking about the generalization issue, of which you have been well versed in. Next, this one will be interesting when you get to think about celery flavored cereal, so have fun with that one. Just okay, but then let's go on to the next. I'm just kind of going through these. I just asked you about the experiment and how you should perform that. Okay, number 30, look at this. This is about a full moon and kind of like some urban legend or something like that. So here it says, it is common belief that people behave strangely when there's a full moon. And that as a result, so here's your measuring stick. Here's your measurement that you can tangibly see if people were acting more strangely on the full moon days. Police and emergency rooms are busier, okay, than usual. So that's a measuring stick of if weirdness is going on. Design a way you could find out if there is any merit to this belief. Would you use an observational study or an experiment? So let's answer that now. Would you use an observational study or experiment? Yeah, observational study because there is no treatment. You cannot assign a full moon. Okay? So this is going to probably be a study of past records of something, you know, or you're going to sit there and then observe in the future, whatever. Now let me tell you this. Observational studies are frequently described just in paragraph form. It is more narrative than your diagram that you draw for experiments. So be aware that you may end up just kind of like writing out a paragraph here instead of doing any picture because you're not assigning treatments and stuff. All right. I do want you to be aware on number 43, it's pretty quirky. It talks about skydiving and even the issue of a placebo parachute. So when you get to that, just get over it and go with it, okay? So don't let that just say, you know, you can't do that, and then stop. All right. Next, number 36 and number 38 are describing how you would conduct this experiment. So this is your chance to give a full, detailed picture and explanation of your choices. And finally, I need you to take out this portion here because we skipped chapter 11 this year. I chose to do random number tables later. So instead of using the random numbers listed below, you will describe your random assignment method. Okay? I found that in the past, I think when I started doing this chapter 11 first, it kind of is a little technical and loses people, and they're like, why are we doing this? And you don't really see what its purpose is until later. I thought, let's just save that until it seems more purposeful. Okay, so that's all the little things I wanted to tell you about your homework. So, put that away and get out your FRAPPYs to grade. I'll give you a baseline so you can see what it would be like without a treatment. You can get the results that just happened. All right, class. I want you to envision yourself being whisked away to Daytona Beach, Florida for a week in the summer, and you make $1,500 grading AP response questions, okay? You will be in a room with your peers and college professors for 8 hours a day, grading one single problem for 5 days. You will have a 3-hour training on that one problem at the beginning of your luxurious week, okay? So you are now an AP grader, and I'm going to demonstrate for you. Here is a picture of like what the grading guidelines that you would be given. They would give you the ideal solution, and then below that you would be told scoring, specifically the way you get E for essentially correct, P for partially correct, and I for incorrect. Now, they would go more in depth than just giving you this one little piece of paper. They would have lots of student samples, so you can kind of talk about what ifs and all this kind of stuff. Furthermore, your work is going to be checked. The leader in your room will take a random sample from your stack and see if you are grading them correctly, and then that person will be checked by another person. So it's very intense to make sure that students across the nation get graded in an equitable fashion. Okay, so let's AP grade your FRAPPY 5.1. Here we go. All right, this is the question where they're asking about the palatability of the food in the cafeteria, and if the dorm students, they want to make a generalization about how the dorm students feel. So what they did was ask the first 100 students that came into the cafeteria. Is asking the students coming into the cafeteria going to be a good representation of the entire dorm? No, because if they come into the cafeteria, then those people are naturally what? They like the food. That's an over-representation. Okay, listen to me. Sometimes it wants you to say this. It did not on this one, but sometimes they'll want to say the number you get is going to overestimate the likeness of the food or whatever. Because since you're asking people that are coming to the cafeteria, of course, it's not representative of the entire dorm room. It's going to overestimate the amount of people that like it. Okay. So there was two things on this problem. If you did not answer both questions, then you got marked down. Two things that you had to have on this was, read the question. Explain how the bias happens and how they were selected, and then suggest how to fix it. So, in order to get your first question answered, you had to say this. You had to say that the first 100 students in the cafeteria might differ from the opinions of the other students who live in the dorm. In other words, you are saying the first 100 into the cafeteria are not representative of the entire dorm room. You have to have context. You cannot just say, this group is not representative of the population. You see how I didn't, that's just like a general definition? Listen, this group is not representative of the population. That's a general statement. How about, these first 100 into the cafeteria are not representative of all dorm students. See how I put context in there? You have to have that. All right. Second thing you had to have was a reasonable alternative, and I actually think that I got marks down on my answer choice. I'll tell you that when we do free response questions, I do them without the answer key. I do them as if I'm a student, and I do them, and then I go check the answer key and see how I would do. All right. I honestly think that I would have missed some credit on this second half of this question here. It says describe a method. Wait, does it say that word? Oh, suggest how. So apparently they wanted the specifics of exactly how you would have randomly selected students from the dorm. So I should have said, first of all, instead of this, randomly ask. Probably what word should I put there instead of ask? Select. Remember our keyword? Randomly select 100 dorm students instead. And then I need to say, do this by putting them all in a big bag, shake well, and pull out 100 names. Okay? If you did that, you got both of those things, you got an E. If you missed one or the other, you got a P. I think I did this insufficiently because I did not say how I collected those 100 people's opinions. So I think I got a P. All right. So, honestly, I think the number one thing that my students do poorly on the free response is they didn't actually answer what they'd asked for. They would say something and you think it's all good because you're saying, okay, I think it's non-response because I don't get very many people going there or whatever. But you didn't actually answer what the question said. And so then you get to the summer and you get a really crappy grade on your AP, a bad grade on your AP test, and you're upset because you came out of there thinking you knew what you were doing. Well, you did know a lot, but you didn't answer the question. Okay, part B. Part B. In this setting, explain how the bias may have been something about the way the question was worded, and suggest how it could have improved upon to avoid that bias. Okay, there are two bad things about the question, and you just have to describe one of them. All right? So, one thing, and here's your choices. You can either say this part's bad. The many students believe yada yada yada. So you're trying to convince them because it's like jump on the bandwagon, join the club. Many students think it's bad. Okay, that's one way it's a mistake. The other way you could have described it as bad is that even though that would increase the cost of the meal, because that confounds and clouds the issue. Was your food, did you say the food was okay because you didn't want to increase the cost of the food? Or did you say the food was okay because it really is okay? See? You can't tell. Yes.
Well, I feel like the students should know that it's not possible.
Well, but you shouldn't bring that to their attention because that, I mean, that, I think, really then brings it introduces that thought to their mind on the forefront. Now, they don't know for sure, so then, you know, they may or may not be influenced by that thought. Okay, but this would definitely bring it to the forefront and influence their response. Okay, so here's the way you get full credit on this. Number one, say one of those two reasons that it was bad. So I said, first part is bad because of the bandwagon. The answer says many students, yada, yada, yada. Additionally, even though it would increase because of the cost, it confounds the issue. You don't know if a choice was made based on the taste or the money. Okay, one of those two sentences, and then that's partial credit so far. The second part is a correct sentence. That's a replacement. And mine says, do you think the quality of the food served at the cafeteria needs improvement? Okay, so I basically just left out any of those other thoughts. So I think I would have gotten an E on that, which would have made me how many points out of 4 points on this one? Okay, I would have gotten 3. That's solid. I'm on track to get a 4 or a 5 on the exam out of 5 points. If you got a 2, then you're still, you know, you still have hope. You could probably still make a 3 and probably even a 4 or 5 depending on how you do on the rest of your things. Okay? If you are making a 1 or a 0, then you are starting to get yourself into potentially like making a 2 or something. Okay? Furthermore, one last thing, and I'm actually going to do 5.2 FRAPPY tomorrow. Let's see. Oh, on the free response, I've even had a student completely not do a free response and still made a 4 on the exam because she did so well on the other 5 out of the 6 free responses. So one downfall is not going to kill you on the AP. All right, that's it. You have your homework for tomorrow.